Hey, what's going on, YouTube? We have a build over here. We have a Carrion Golem build, one of the hottest meta builds that we have going forward in 3.18. So this isn't like a build guide or anything, but I will leave the paste bin down below if you want to see where I'm at right now. I will try to keep it updated as I keep gearing up the character and seeing where we go with it through the league. But I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what we got going on. So again, this is Carrion Golem. We are using zombies, we are using specters, and we're using the Explodey Animate Guardian. I got that from Gamer Report on YouTube, by the way. And I got the dash skill from Gamer Report. I just want to give them a quick shout out. Let's go over to our stash and I'll kind of show you a little quick overview of what we got going on. So for gear, I've opted not to go for the cold iron points, even though Carrion Golem does scale its damage on levels. The +3 to physical gems would be juicy. What I've decided instead was the extra golem at this point would be worth a little bit more before I get into my end game wand, which is going to be a trigger wand. For right now, we're still going to rock the clay shaper, but not for very much longer. I also decided instead of getting a second clay shaper or just 2 cold iron points, I wanted a little bit more defense because I went CI and I wanted a shield with fat ES, and I did just that. So we have 312 ES on this shield, which is great. Again, we just focus on ES gear mostly because we're CI at the moment, so every piece has as much ES as I can possibly get. Right now we're probably about mid-game, end of yellow maps and beginning of red maps. So Sentinel is not something that I'm necessarily enjoying yet. That does not mean it's bad. I just mean I haven't really gotten into it just because I've been focused on building the character. So the gear, you can check it out in the POB. This is temporary as far as what my end game gear is going to be. The shield will be replaced ultimately with Aegis. This is the end game chest piece that we will 6-link, or I'll try to get a better base with maybe some better specs on it. The helm will be going for one of these level 86 Elder base, and we're going to try to get basically a 7-link and get our Carrion Golems in there. So I was trying to roll this just to have some fun with it, but I don't have any bound fossils to do that yet. Flasks, there's no life flask because we're a CI and we're using roomies. And then we have quartz, sulfur, basalt, and quicksilver. This is our lineup. They're not all like finally rolled because I'm waiting to get the higher levels, but that's okay. That will come with time. Pantheon. Pantheon is pretty simple right now. Soul of Brine King with cannot be frozen, at least gotten right away if you can. You need to get that from Atoll or Plateau. Get yourself a Divine Vessel, run the boss, and go get cannot be frozen. Easy game. For the miner, I chose Soul of Alberath because in 3.18, I don't know if you guys are feeling it, but I'm feeling it, and Burning Ground is kicking my butt. So I'd rather not be affected by it at all. And this build is absolutely socket starved, so we don't have room for like purity of elements or anything to get rid of our ailments. Let's go through the gems real quick. In our weapon, I'm doing Desecrate linked with Bone Offering. This is really important for the build. The colors and the links matter. Maybe not in this case so much because I just have Dread Banner, but in other pieces it could. So green is first, then tied with blue, so Desecrate goes off, and then Bone Offering goes off. But the problem is I don't have a trigger wand, so this is not active right now. So I am manually casting Bone Offering to make sure the minions get the big life regen and the big block. So that's good. And of course, Dread Banner in the weapon. Up top, we're keeping Carrion Golem so we can transfer that over to our new helm once we get it. It's gonna be about 15x for the helm. Everything you see right here as far as gear goes, because at the beginning of the league, I have no more than, I'd say no more than 100 C in gear. Yeah, I spent no more than 100 C on all of this. Okay, Carrion Golem's up top. In the shield, I'm putting Molten Shell, Determination, and Assassin's Mark. I'm manually marking all the bosses and all the rares as much as possible. The rings, I'm keeping Discipline and Summon Skitterbots. Boots, and listen, the boots, helm, and the gloves, you can switch your colors. So if you opt for a different piece of gear than I do, you can always just color it as long as you have a 4-link or at least like 4 sockets on each. I won't get too far into that. But on the gloves, I have Raise Spectre, Animate Guardian, Minion Life, and Maim. And then boots, we're rocking Purity of Ice, Divergent Dash, Convocation, and Tempest Shield. These two down here, you can replace it with something else if you want. Tempest Shield's nice, but I don't have the mana reserve to run it at the moment because we don't have Ashes of the Stars. Ashes of the Stars gives us 20% mana reduction, basically. But I like Convocation because I can pull my minions directly into the fight no matter where I am. So if I'm just running through something, I can just Convocate and boom, we're in. Divergent Dash, super important. If you look at the quality on here, you can see that it grants phasing for 2 seconds. You can extend this as well, but the cooldown is 2.2 12 seconds. If we can just extend the duration, we can get that going much, much further into like 4-second territory, which is basically permanent phasing. That's awesome for this build. This build is really good for delving. I haven't tried it for heist yet. End game, once I have the rest of the gear, it can do wave 30 simulacrum, no problem. You could do the feared on this if you're mechanically better than I am. Unfortunately, Adzir was just kicking my butt last league, so I wasn't able to finish it. But I was able to do all the 10 ways. I beat Maven, I beat Cyrus, I beat all the bosses. I had no problem with it except Adzir. Uber Adzir was the only one that gave me a little bit of a struggle, but we did Shaper, we did all of them. We did all of them last league. I'm hoping to do them this league as well. Because we don't have Ashes of the Stars, I've opted for an Ami that gives me big attributes, specifically Dexterity, because this is a Dexterity starve build, as well as a socket starve. But if you can balance your stuff just right, it's gonna be delish. The only thing better on this build is if I can get a Stygian. And then the other thing I do want to point out, because I just saw it, is the regen. This is an energy shield build. One thing that I really like for energy shield is getting massive regen, flat regen specifically. So if you look at this, the belt has 54.4 flat life per second. Because we take Zealot's Oath, this now applies to energy shield. My boots does not have it on, but my gloves have a flat 85. We have aspect of the avian on this ring, and the chest piece is kind of important. Reason Sakawal's Nest, one, because of all the attributes, and then two, because it gives us 100% buff to the aspect of the avian. And the aspect of the avian, if you go down here and you look here, gives your minions 10% movement speed. It also gives me 10% movement speed, and it gives me a 10% double damage for my minions. So that's pretty juicy. Yeah, I would definitely jump on that if you can squeeze it into the build. It might be tough with the mana res. I could give this up and bring in Tempest Shield. So, I mean, tomato, tomato, you're gonna have to choose where to spend your stuff. All right, Pantheon build Atlas. Let me show you the Atlas real quick and how I'm doing it. This is where it gets really subjective, because I don't know the content that you like doing. This build is built for Blight. I love doing Blight maps, but we are not spec'd into Blight because I'm just buying the Blight maps and running them. However, this node right here is really important to get if you're going to be doing Blight maps for this build. This is Epidemiology. This gives me 25% effect on all my modifiers, specifically on my blighted maps. All the other Blight nodes affect blights that are in regular maps, not blighted maps. But this node right here will also give me 80% more chance to contain more blighted maps, which is Blight Map Sustain. You want to do Blight maps and focus in on tiers 1 through 5. That's where you're going to get the most of your juice, because you can do the Chaos recipe. You can do encounters very easily. This is what you want to be doing. Blight maps, get your currency. My first 2 days of the league, I dropped 5 Exalts plus hundreds of lower currencies like fusings, jewelers, gem cutters, all that stuff. So do your Blight maps. They're really important. I understand they're boring, so do heist if you don't like Blight. Go do something else. One thing that I'm doing this league, and I'm making sure I'm grabbing at least some essence nodes so we can drop some free money, and absolutely getting my strong boxes in there. I think strong boxes are an underappreciated aspect of the game. A lot of juice there. I could go up this way and skip all of this, which I probably will now that I've gone through here, so maybe I'll respec these points and get out of the delve nodes. This was important in the front. I wasn't sure which way I was going to go because I wanted to get some of these nodes over here, like Harbinger and stuff. I want to get Harbinger because it's more density on my maps. So I don't know if we're going to give this up, but maybe just for right now because we're short on points. But I got all these strongbox nodes up here because, well, they're great. Operative strongbox gives you scarabs, and then I don't have to roll my strongboxes. They're all corrupted for me. Beautiful. I'm focusing mostly on Delirium, and the goal here with Delirium is 1, get simulacrums, 2, the bosses are juicy, and 3, I want the cluster jewels. So if I can get cluster jewels and then roll them in harvest, I could have exalts upon exalts upon exalts in selling those. I am going to try to get Delirium, try to drop as many cluster jewels because some of them are pretty expensive right now. And then maybe at the end, I want to get into Breach. I'll probably get into Expedition and respec out of Delirium, but I'm going to continue Blight because I think Blight is where it's at. And ultimately, we want to be able to do Blight Ravage maps and regular T14 and above Blight maps too. So that is my plan for that. Let's look at the passive tree real quick. If we see the passive tree, I'm right now, as I'm showing you this build, I am level 88. So we still have at least 10 more points we're going to get. I take 2 cluster jewels. Each one of these at the beginning of the league is 3.5 exalts. I picked up 2. I used all of my currency that I dropped from Blight maps to buy these. We're simply going for renewal, vicious bite, and we want to make sure we're getting the cluster jewels with rotten claws on them so that way it looks like this. But we're not going after Impale. We may choose to try Impale and see how that feels towards the end game. So at least I have the option because they both have Rotten Claws. What you get on them doesn't really matter because we're only going to take the little node here and it's probably not going to be effective, but try to get a jewel with something you need, whether it's attributes or resistances, but you do that and you'll be good to go. All my resistances are capped at the moment, so I just decided attack speed and cast speed for my minions. And over on this one, I went with some fire res. It's like free game anyway. You can choose to drop these physical nodes, Indomitable Army. You can also forget Grave Intentions if you want to use these points somewhere else. That's only if you can max res all your minions with Chaos, Elemental res, and even some phys damage reduction. You can always come down here and pick up a third jewel socket up here. One thing that I have not put in is my small cluster jewels, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. So all this is in the POB. We're really trying to stack armor. We're trying to get that minion crit and minion life going. You don't necessarily need these if you these two little ones over here. If you feel like you have enough damage to do the content you're doing, you can drop those and use those points somewhere else. What is important is when you get Aegis, and you're trying to get 90 all res, you really need to make sure you take all of these little nodes here for the mana efficiency and get to 15% mana efficiency as the mastery. You also need to make sure you have all of these, and we're probably going to end up anointing Charisma, but Charisma is like 3 golden oils. Because the other option is come down here, get these points out, come down here, grab Intuitive Leap, and then grab Charisma like that. But I feel like what you get out of it, unless you're going to go for spell suppression down here and get into basically the Trickster and Pathfinder or Ranger's tree. I don't know. I've gone this way. It feels okay. You can do this. I've decided not to. I feel like this is tankier than going down here. There's all kinds of Carrion Golem builds. You can try them all if you want. I did all 6 of them. I just followed everybody's Carrion Golems in 3.17, and I feel like this one right here was the tankiest, and I could do all content without worrying about this. So check it out. If you got questions, leave it in the comments below. I'll try to answer them as this goes up. Last but not least, that's not in there is the cluster jewels. I have them right here in my inventory, and this is a maybe if I can fit in a third one. And we could do voices too, but I feel like the large cluster jewels are too juicy. So little cluster jewels, we want to make sure we get Pure Guile, which is going to give you 80% mana reservation for Purity of Ice. That's going to be really important. It's the only way we're going to be able to squeeze it into the build. And then on the other one, we want to make sure we're getting Enduring Composure. Oh, before I forget, make sure that this is a 3-noder, okay, for mana reservation efficiency of skills. We want to make sure it's 3 because each one of the small nodes are going to be 6%. That's going to be really important for us to be able to fit in Tempest Shield and ultimately Purity of Ice. And then last, this one is just a 2 node, and that's important because we want to use that one passive point somewhere else. So over here, we want to get Enduring Composure. That's going to give us 30% increased armor, but more importantly, it's going to gain 1 endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. And we do get hit from time to time, so free endurance charges are really juicy. Let's see. I think other than that, that's kind of where I'm at right now. The build has been great. I do have some deaths, but that was just because 3.18. Just for fun, let's put it up on the screen. Deaths 177 times, and a lot of that was just because of the overtuned monsters in Sentinel, but we'll talk about that in a different video. Please, if you like this video, drop a like, subscribe for more. I will do follow-up videos so you can see my Carrion Golem progression over 3.18. I plan on playing every day that I possibly can during the league, and I appreciate you watching. Hey, until the next one, I'll see you soon. Okay. I gotta pee real quick. All right, listen. Go get all right. Yo, all right, listen. My edible just kicked in. I just need people to hear me. This edible, I can feel. Oh my God. Yo, I need to pee so bad. I gotta pee real quick. I gotta pee real quick. Yo, NA is a server.